Hey guys, if you love QF's content on our free Sundays and Thursday sessions, then please visit our Patreon page in the description and sub to the Black Kluge tier or higher for full access to not only our bonus weekly Tuesday night shows and the alternate Sunday shows you've been missing, but also to the exclusive episodes not available to the lower tiers. It's roughly the price of one coffee a month, and nobody at Starbucks will make you laugh like we do for that kind of scratch. In addition, when you sub to the Black Kluge tier, you'll get 2 weeks advance access to each Thursday session on Patreon before it makes it to YouTube.
And I know that people are telling me that making duty in Italy is difficult. And what are you going to bring? Are you bringing baby wipes?
No, it's not difficult. It's not.
How are you going to clean up? I told you. I'm going to work with my psychiatrist about fun. He's like my fun coach. I mean, honestly, from this conversation, having fun sounds like a lot of work, but I will do it. I'll put in the time and I'll put in the energy. So do I have to sign up for TikTok to see the Get Ready With Me's or?
I don't believe you have to create an account. You can be a learner.
Sounds like a lot of work. I could have my assistant do that so I don't look so pervy. You're so young. How old are you? 20?
22.
22. Why did you try Botox? That I don't get. Do what I do. Don't go anywhere and you won't have that problem. You go to
Howard
too many
doesn't
places.
know that.
Yeah, I don't even know what happens in a hotel.
Are you packing your converters for Italy, Howard? Your electric converters?
I don't know. Oh my God. And then she didn't like the jeans that I picked out. And she said, I should have been with you when you picked out your outfit for Sunday. Don't ask. But, I don't know anything about sports. There was just a huge weekend of football.
Yes.
And I watched some of it because Ralph does this thing. He texts me about 10 minutes before the game's going to end. And he says, now it's getting good. Why don't you go watch, I don't know, whatever the games were. Tampa versus Buffalo or Miami.
Tampa versus Dallas.
Miami.
Yeah.
I don't even know what I watched. I watched the Giants.
Yeah, I never understand that the drummer and the bass player are kind of keyed into each other because they're doing the, I don't understand music. I'm just appreciative of it. And, the thought of losing you drove me over the edge and I started crying and sobbing uncontrollably. I never had that reaction to anything before where you can't stop yourself from crying. And I was like, my shrink had to express me, this is human. This is human. When you care about somebody, I go, oh, okay. I literally
like a completely unique experience.
It was like explaining to an alien, from another planet what it is to be human. I had never had those life lessons before. Where it's normal to do this.
Teach
I want to
the
do
cats.
I want to do it myself. I want to do things on my own. The psychiatrist says I should do things on my own.
Welcome, ladies and gents, to QF, a podcast about Howard Stern. I'm, once again, your host, Fillmore, a.k.a. Jim Fix, with me for part 4. That is correct, part 4 of Quivers, a Cunt. The breakdown of her awful book is Lady K, as I used to call her, Miss Kayla. How are you, my dear?
I'm good. You better get that right.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Otherwise, I might get stuck in that robotic dungeon you have behind you.
That's right.
Every time we start recording, Kayla has a different background. So this time it's some kind of Frankenstein setup or something.
Well, I did that because I keep switching rooms because I don't know, I have ADHD. I'm just like, this is boring. I'm going to move. So this way, you'll never know where I am.
Well, there you go. And it's
mysterious.
For my part, it's always whatever Photoshop I can come up with. It's probably it is backwards. I guess it doesn't appear properly. Guys, the last time we were recording one of these, she had finished talking about Uncle Leroy, the big spender, he of deep pockets. And what happens in the next bit of the book, Kayla mentioned that, of course, it's a lot about Muhammad Ali. And it really is more or less, all of a sudden it stops being about her and is all about him and why he's so important to her. But if you read it the way she does, it's almost like it's token. This is because he was very influential to a lot of people. This isn't revelatory, and it's not really that necessary to read. But there's 2.5 minutes of audio that will let her kind of have her say. So after that, we'll go into some other things that we think you'll be a little more excited about. So here we go.
I was probably beginning to think that saving what little money you could make and then going to a store to spread it around was the only way a poor black person could get any respect at all. And then I started to hear people talking about this boxer named Cassius Clay. Mostly it was black men like my father who talked about Cassius Clay. They said he was a crazy nigger who was going to get himself in trouble. He's got a big mouth and somebody ought to shut him up. What the hell was this guy saying, I wondered. I had to find out. I discovered that Sonny Liston was the world heavyweight champion and that Cassius Clay wanted to fight him. Sonny Liston was the perfect example of a good nigger, so big, so powerful, and so under control. When I finally saw Cassius Clay, I thought he must have some kind of a death wish. He was young and very good-looking, but he also looked a lot smaller than Sonny. Liston finally agreed to fight Clay, and the black men said that Clay was going to get his big mouth shut. But Sonny failed the black men that night. He hardly laid a glove on his young opponent, and Clay was cocky and loud. "I am the greatest," he screamed after the fight. The black men were stunned and afraid. Clay was proving to be a worse champion than their worst nightmares could have conjured up. He was threatening to join some wacky religion, the Nation of Islam.
That's such a Robin word, wacky.
I know. Why did she go Blackman? She say black men. Like, I don't know. She has such a weird affect when she speaks at times.
Well, part of it is because I don't want to sound like too presumptuous, but that's a show. That's what we do. Sometimes she doesn't consider herself black, and she never ever wanted to be black. And it's not because of her affect or way she speaks and stuff. She explains in the book her mother wanted her to have good diction, didn't want her to talk in Ebonics or what have you. And she does have a good voice. She has a great radio voice, in fact. Mm-hmm. But I don't think you have to. You don't have to. You don't have to. You can be anything. You can be all things. You don't have to be one thing. You don't have to be defined by any one thing. I get that, but she went so far away from it. I think in some respects she was. She wished she wasn't. The way Howard doesn't. He probably wishes he wasn't Jewish.
Yeah, I get that. It's the over the top enunciation. So it's funny because my aunt, I'm from the South. So my aunt, she very much does not want to have a Southern accent. So she over enunciates in a non-Southern way. She kind of does that fake fancy sometimes that Robin does, as a matter of fact. And so we have this other lady in our family named Dottie. Like, everybody called her Aunt Dottie, but, like short for Dorothy. She would go Dottie. Like, what is that? I don't know what that is, but it is that weird thing about like not wanting to be what you are, which is fine. Look, I don't go around yeehawing all the time, but it's like,
sure.
I have a Southern, accent. Or right. Whatever. Like, I don't really try to hide it that much. I just talk. Now I put on my little work voice when I'm at work, but I don't try to get rid of any word any kind of way. It's so strange.
Well, I mean, I guess that's the real question is, did they do it because they felt they didn't want to conform to the common misconception that Southerners are this if you're Southern, you're ignorant, or you're just not very intelligent. The accent is considered hickish, I suppose.
It is.
I mean,
God,
I think most people I know would find it charming, unless what came out was well, blacks should be living in their own island or something like that.
Right.
Like, if you heard something racist in the Southern, it would unfortunately be some kind of stereotypical thought that everybody would have. But I think I don't know. I always just think I don't know. I find it charming. I guess it depends who you're talking to.
Right, I agree. I think it's cute too. There are some that I don't like. There's different styles or whatever, and some are. I think they're cute, just like the little Baltimore and the New York accents. I think are cute too. But when you get like too too whatever,
God.
it's like,
Yeah.
oh shit. Yeah, it does make you kind of sound like a dummy. And so I don't know why I'm all over the place. I'm sorry. I always think of this. I don't know who the comedian is, but he goes, just imagine Jesus coming back to the earth, but he comes back in he has Southern accent. Oh my God. It makes me laugh because he does that hillbilly voice. Jesus God, it's so funny. All right. Sorry, I'm back.
Well, no. So Rob, I believe Robin thought that if she sounded more, for lack of a better term, like colorless, that would benefit her. And I guess it did in some ways, but I think it's her voice, her actual speaking voice, what was more important than the the diction. I think it was just the sound, like the tones of her voice was perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I get it to a certain extent. Like I said, when I'm in a work meeting,
You're not going to say
I have
y'all.
a different voice. Right, exactly. Y'all want some sweet tea? I'm not going to be doing that. So I get it. I get it. I really do. But I don't know. It can be a little silly too, and it's a little bit too, I don't know. There's a line that can get crossed, and then it just feels silly in the opposite direction.
Okay, I totally get that. Anyway, we'll continue with the Muhammad Ali biography that we've stumbled into, guys.
After the rematch against Liston, Clay announced that he no longer wanted to be called Cassius Clay. He was now Muhammad Ali. The black men were confused. We were on entirely new ground here. Ali was charting a new course, all without the aid of education or philosophy. I realized I had the role model I had been looking for all my life. He was the champ. Muhammad was a man of principle. In the years ahead, he was to prove that his true measure was not his titles, nor his money, nor his fame, but what he stood for.
This is what I had an issue with. If he's your role model and it's for what he stood for, that was, it was his principles, and that's what you're basing it on. What are your principles, Robin?
Right, exactly. She doesn't go into why he's like, what is it? What is it exactly? You made a good point with it being token, unfortunately, and I hate that. I hate that expression, and it can be a cliche at times, but I feel like she took this figure that everyone would love. It's not like she took, I don't know, I can't think of anyone right now, but like she took a figure that was so well known and so mainstream. It's almost like it didn't have any meaning to it. It's kind of like me saying, like, God, I can't think of anyone. Dale Murphy is like, I don't know.
Well, she could have picked Sidney Poitier. She could have picked another athlete. Right. She could have picked like a singer, like I don't know, or a comedian, I suppose. I don't know, someone who made it big, who is African American, but this is a safe one because he's so iconic, he's so legendary. And even though there are loads of people that have problems with Muhammad Ali, not for his politics, but the fact, like his treatment of Joe Frazier, the way he debased him really and called him like an Uncle Tom and all this like really horrible stuff that if you're in the black community, like, well, he was a role model for a lot of people and he brought the black community together, but he also divided it as well. It's on some level for some people, and some people will never forgive that. As a boxer, he was obviously phenomenal. I mean, Christ's sake, his record speaks for itself. But the other thing was she needed this whole concept of he was a fighter. I'm a fighter. That's what we had in common. Meanwhile, you read this book, she's the direct opposite of a fighter.
Exactly. And so, no, you're exactly right. And I agree that he was safe and he was the fighter that she could use as her little archetype, as well as somebody. As well as somebody.
Oh, it's so that she's going to talk a little bit more, and then we're going to go into the two Jameses, guys.
On April 28, 1967, in the midst of the Vietnam War, Muhammad Ali refused to be drafted into the Army.
And this is at the top of page 55, if you guys are following along. She skips around a lot. This is a huge chapter, and this is a very small condensing, and we figured we don't really need to go through all of it. So
he said that his religion was opposed to the war. The old men who were beginning to grudgingly accept him as their champion now saw new hope that he could be unseated. Finally, he would meet an opponent he couldn't whoop, the federal government. I was in awe of him. Ali went to court and fought the draft. The case slowly made its way through the system. It would take 4 years for the case to make it to the Supreme Court, where 8 white justices, with Thurgood Marshall abstaining, would side with Ali. The government and the Boxing Commission had been wrong. Ali had thrown his whole life into the breach. 4 years is longer than most people can wait to see the outcome of anything. If this was the only lesson that Ali would have taught me, it would have been enough. But he had tons of lessons to teach and quite a few tricks up his sleeve.
okay, so that takes us to the second paragraph on page 56, guys. And I believe this one is just called Jimmy. And this is where there's also a bit more about Shirley. Excuse me. We finally get to hear a little bit more about Shirley, which we should have heard originally, but for some reason, the era time warping Robin decided to throw it in after Muhammad Ali because he was more important. So we'll play a little bit here. Change was a Quivers house rule. People always seemed to be coming and going at my house. There was the core group, me, my mother and father, and my brother Charles Jr. Then there was everybody else. My uncle George, who was my father's youngest brother, lived with us for a while, but then he moved out so that his daughter Shirley could move in. Again, I don't quite understand why this happens. It continues further. Well, we'll read it all before we start talking a little bit better. But it's the only time a cousin will go to live with someone else's parents is almost always when, like a godfather situation or godmother, the parents have died, and the parents have decided the aunt and uncle decide, well, they can't put her up in a home. We got to take her in.
No, and then it's like, why? So why would the dad have to move out so the daughter could move in? Why wouldn't they both just live there?
Yeah,
maybe.
I guess space, but I get. Yeah. So why don't you read the next paragraph, because it is funny, and it's funnier when you do her voice.
I was 2, she was 5, and Junior was 6 when she came. Since were both girls, she and I shared a room. I assumed that Shirley would be with us until she grew up, so I treated her like a sister. I didn't know if I liked her. You don't think about whether you like the people you have to live with. They're just there. I didn't know if she was pretty. I didn't think about that either. I was the baby of the family. That meant that I was automatically the cutest one.
Who the fuck says
what
that?
The fuck, you asshole? Like, what does that have to do with anything?
Well, the other thing is, I don't know if I liked her. You either do or you don't. Why wouldn't you know? Why wouldn't you, in your retrospect, say, oh, I got along with her or I didn't?
Right. What does that even mean? I used to hang out with my cousins. I know if I liked them or not.
Of course.
I did. We had fun. Like, if you're having fun with somebody or not, regardless of what age you are.
I didn't know if she was pretty. Yes, you do. You think someone's pretty, or you think someone's handsome or big or fat or tall or whatever, or funny, or you don't.
Exactly. But she has to say that only so that she can say she was automatically the cutest.
That's right, of course, because she's the baby. Listen, I've seen some ugly fucking babies in my life. One of my wife's friends, she used to post the baby pictures came out fast and furious, as they do on Facebook. Mm-hmm. And I said, whose unfortunate child is that? And she goes, oh, this is my friend so-and-so's. And I go, okay, now most likely this kid's going to grow out of it, but she will not thank the mother for taking so many fucking pictures of her as a kid. And sure enough, the kid's now 5, 6, and a picture of a child, like a really, really cute kid. But the baby, as a baby, really unattractive. This unruly, blasty red hair all over the place. And it looks like you've seen those pictures online. There's a picture, like you look up the ugliest baby in the world and you see this one with a square head. It's awful. Anyway, the next paragraph continues. Shirley was bigger and lighter than I was. When her girlfriends started worrying about boys, I remember them all congratulating Shirley because she could pass the brown bag test. The darker girls were worried that the boys wouldn't like them. Shirley said she wasn't sure if she was lighter than a brown bag, so someone pulled one out, and sure enough, she was. This is the first time I've ever heard of the brown bag test.
Is that real?
I don't know any of the African American or African international Canadian whatever friends out there. Please let us know on QF land, because I'd never before this book and since this book I've never ever once heard this. Why don't you take? We'll split paragraphs. Why don't you continue?
If the talk was about boys, when my mother came into the room, Shirley would clam up. God, she was passive. She used to drive me crazy. I think that's why I fought with her so much. That, plus the fact it seemed to me she was competing for my father's affection. Dun, dun, dun. She had a father of her own. What did she need with mine? I would gladly have given her my mother instead, but they never seemed to get along. God.
Okay. My mother would hit the ceiling if she saw Shirley with boys. According to her, Shirley was the kind of girl who was surely going to get, quote, into trouble, unquote. That meant only one thing when applied to girls: getting pregnant before getting married. Excuse me. Shirley, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I'm fighting you. Shirley's abrupt departure from our house when she was 11 or 12 has always been mysterious to me. The way I remembered it, my mother decided that she wanted her gone, and within a week she was living with her father and his new wife, Miss Annie. We weren't even consulted. I was used to seeing my cousin every day for most of my life, and suddenly she wasn't there. I figured that if she was going to be living with her father, I'd get to see her sometime. But Shirley didn't get along with her new stepmother either, and before long was on her way back to Virginia. I knew I'd never see her again once she got there.
This is where it gets a little strange. We wrote to each other once for a while. We wrote to each other for a while, but it was clear that she was going to grow up very different from me, and I was only 8 when she left. It was hard to keep up the correspondence. Hard, yeah, especially if you're Robin and you don't really give a fuck about other human beings.
Right.
Now, it's true. Like cousins, you're close to some people, even siblings, and you're not close to other ones. That makes perfect sense. But she doesn't want to say that. She's just like clearly has a problem as a narcissist. Clearly just has a problem connecting to anybody, except like depending on what they can do for her. And as we know, Shirley was the reason Mrs. So-and-so hated her because she was in the stupid class. And, Shirley was a good for ne'er-do-well and good for nothing. So fuck her. What did she do for me?
Yeah, exactly. And she was trying to get up on her dad's big arms, muscly arms.
No
Robin
kidding.
wasn't having that.
Yeah, no, don't you fucking horn in on my action, bitch. The other thing is, so the uncle got a new wife, so that might have been the problem. Like he if he was working, there's nobody at home because he was divorced or had lost his first wife. Who knows? That she would have been by herself, or she wasn't old enough for school. Someone had to be there. Nobody was there. There's no other older kids or anything. So maybe they had to take her in as a, but then the father had to be taken in too as well. I still, again, it's nebulous. She should have explained this a little better, but go figure.
Mm-hmm.
Robin can't, get the news right. So why don't you continue?
Even before Shirley left, my mother started taking in other children. She decided to become a foster parent after a steelworkers strike forced her back into a maid's uniform for what she declared would be the last time. The state paid money to board and feed these kids, and my mother looked at that money as steady income. Her work would now be foster mothering.
Okay. Getting into the system involved an extensive application process that included family interviews. When they interviewed Junior, Shirley, and me, the authorities had no idea that my mother had coached us. First, she told us what to say. Then she had us role play with her as the social worker. We were to answer that we wanted these children to come to our house, that our parents never fought, that we were very happy, very religious, and that we'd love to open our homes and hearts to needy children.
I could tell that the social worker was quite impressed with our performance. She went so far as to say, "What mature and well-behaved children. I'm sure we'll have no problem approving your application." If she'd only known.
Yeah, exactly. In a very short time, we were accepted as a pre-adoptive foster home, which meant that only infants and toddlers who weren't considered adoptable would be placed with us. Only infants and toddlers who were considered adoptable. Oh, I see. So, in other words, if they weren't desirable, they weren't getting them. Like, I don't know what that would mean, like limbless kids or, kids with defects or physical handicaps. Yeah.
Yeah.
My mother didn't want older children. And older children as well. Since they'd already been around for a while and had been raised by others, they were probably damaged. Robin wasn't interesting. She didn't want to inherit someone else's problems. She definitely preferred to create her own.
That's funny.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. Go on.
Pretty soon after that, the front door became a revolving door. Our little boarders were from 6 months to a year old and stayed a year or two before being placed in permanent homes. Since I wasn't doing anything else, I helped out with the kids. I actually didn't mind it. I knew they were too young to hurt me. I trusted them. It was all right to share affection with them, but I knew not to get too attached because they could leave at any moment.
Well, that's an interesting dynamic because that would create some kind of minor sociopath, because if you don't get attached, like you're starting to create this mind that, if the kids are always leaving, it's no different, I suppose, than military kids. We talked about this before in the previous episode. If you're constantly got to leave because your dad gets stationed somewhere else, are you going to bother making connections? Are you going to even give of yourself when you know it's kind of a waste of time?
Yeah, and I get that. This is even, I feel, worse than that because she's making these kids seem like they are little dolls, these little, robots that are just whizzing through like on a conveyor belt coming through the home. And she's just,
bringing in money.
Yes, it's a little nasty, really.
It is. I mean, I don't know how much money. Now, I can remember one of my babysitter when I was a kid was an older lady who was a widow, and sometimes she had 20 kids in the house, 20, and the parents paid they paid her some money, absolutely, but she wanted something to do with her time. She didn't want to work, her job at the time, and she decided to become a neighborhood basically nanny, but at a stay-at-home nanny. You bring your kids, I'll take care of them for the time being, whatever. And it was infants, it was toddlers, it was kids early elementary school and up till about 10 years old, I'd say. And you'd think it was chaos, and sometimes it was, but it worked for some reason. And the parents trusted her with their lives. She was just that really, she loved kids. That was the other key thing. But this goes a step beyond making your entire money. You're making some of your disposable income these fucking children. I mean, that creates chaos. These kids coming and going.
Right. Look, here's the thing. If you're in foster care, you've already had a rough start of things. There's already a problem. So, especially, well, not especially because everybody needs it, but in a different way, babies and toddlers need a lot more one-to-one to help them actually develop into little human beings.
Yes.
And so the fact that they were treating these little kids like these little money makers, just these little objects, it was so, it's just a nasty feeling. It is a little sociopathic. Like, you're not even connecting to these humans that are in your home for the short time they're there. Like, all right, this is not the same, but I used to foster dogs. Not the same. I get it. It's a dog. But at the same time, the dogs would come in and I would keep them for like a couple months at the time. I can promise you I was like squishing on them and like petting them and playing with them and like little puppy kisses, doggy kisses, whatever, because I loved them. Even though I knew they were leaving, they were still with me, and I still wanted to take care of them.
Right, and they needed to know that they belonged, and they felt,
Yes.
Yes, exactly. Even though all of a sudden that means they got to get used to a new place, but that's part of the gig. But this one sounds like bring in another one. Just bring in another one. Just conveyor belt.
So gross.
So the next paragraph, I forget who read the last one, but it was. I'll just do the last one. We'll go into the audio. We were only supposed to have 2 foster children living with us at a time, so our house was already full on February 27th, 1967, when a frantic social worker called to tell us they had a 4-day-old baby and no available homes. So my mother consented to boarding a 3rd child, and here we go in with Jimmy. So one sec.
His name was James, but we started calling him Jimmy right away. He came to us straight from the hospital. I remember rushing home from school the day he arrived. I had never seen a baby that young. That afternoon, I did my homework sitting on the steps of the living room so that I could watch him. As I got more comfortable with Jimmy's size and age, I started spending every moment that I wasn't in school with him. When I was doing homework, I'd lay him beside me. I'd feed him, and then I'd have my own dinner. My mother eventually moved his crib into my room. That was just fine with me. I thought God had sent me someone to love again, someone who would love me without hurting me. I decided I'd adopt him after I graduated from college. We'd get an apartment of our own.
Now, this was all going to, this is passing through page 59, 60, 61. So, guys, we're going to go ahead and go to page 62. She chooses this high school. It's a Jewish high school. I think it's called Western. And let's see if I got this right. If the previous page has got it listed. Hold on. Yeah, it's just called Western. Northwestern High, my mistake, and it's a Jewish school, it seems, or at least most of the students were Jewish, so they took a lot of. Anytime there was a Jewish holiday, it was a school holiday essentially. We're going on to page 62, and this is more about Jimmy stuff. You want to take that paragraph?
Mm-hmm. The life lessons were coming fast and furious now, and even little Jimmy would end up teaching me as much as I would teach him. By caring for him, I learned what it really meant to love someone. He helped me to forget all the cruelty in my own life and to see beyond the spare rod, spoil the child philosophy of child rearing my parents practiced. My mother used to tell me that she beat us because she loved us, and although I don't think I ever believed that, when I was in charge of the foster kids, I beat them too.
Jesus, like
all right.
Thanks. That makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the key is she becomes a big sister later on.
Jesus.
I wonder if the big sisters would have done that if they knew that this was part of her life.
I don't know. I mean, probably because of her celebrity status.
Maybe. Maybe that would be enough to shield herself from that. I have a funny feeling if they had read the book, they were like, no, this person's psychotic. Yeah.
Well, I hope so.
So this is, but don't get too comfortable, guys, thinking she's a good person, because here it continues. I might have gone on thinking this was okay if Jimmy hadn't come. He embraced the terrible twos with a vengeance. When he threw his first tantrum, I just didn't know what to do. The more I yelled for him to stop, the louder he screamed. With no other options, I resorted to that old standby, spanking. I took off my sandal and started whacking him on the butt. With each smack, he cried even louder. In the midst of all the action, I suddenly saw what I was doing, which was being just like my mother. I was beating a little boy I claimed to love. I wasn't fixing the problem. I was physically abusing a child. Thank goodness I was hitting mostly diaper. Oh, that's, good.
Well, that's okay. That's all right. So she's such a fucking bitch. Like, yes, she can't. All right. First of all, you're beating all the foster kids that come in. Okay. So, which we've already established were like under 2 or something. So that's nice. And then she comes in here and tries to give this little paragraph of vulnerability of how she was just repeating what her mother did. And but then she has to end it. Well, thank goodness it was just a diaper. I didn't really hurt him.
Yeah. Okay. You're going to, tell that in the confessional. See, I mean, the truth is, corporal punishment was something that a lot of us grew up with, our generation, that probably stopped with our generation, I would say. Yeah. I mean, or trickled to a halt. But I mean, this is someone, and if it's a life lesson, it would be fine if we found out that she grew up more normal as a result and didn't have these psychotic episodes at work.
Mm-hmm.
This is all adding fuel to the fire.
Exactly. Like it just shows you from start to finish, she can't fucking control herself. No. She is out of control.
Yes. The next paragraph, why don't you take over? I fell.
I fell to my knees crying, and it took him in my arms. I promised him and myself that I would never hit him again. I promised to be patient with him and not to try to work out our problems with belts, switches, and paddles. For the first time, I realized that I had hit those other children because of my problems, not theirs. As time went on, I was amazed at how easy and loving even discipline could be.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Okay.
You never beat another one again? Yeah, I believe that.
Right.
I was also determined that Jimmy wasn't going to be hit by anybody else either, and I made my mother's life hell as only I could if anything, quote, happened, unquote, to him while I was away. I assumed total parental control, and my parents let me. If Jimmy misbehaved while he was in school, my mother got him in line by threatening to tell me that he had been bad. That's the way I wanted it. So here's where the audio continues, guys.
I think I was a good parent. I treated Jimmy like a little person. I never talked baby talk to him, so by the time that he was 3.5, he had an amazing vocabulary for his age. He knew unconditional love and found nothing wrong with himself. Even the rough stuff, such as toilet training, was easy with him because I was fascinated by everything he said and did. I wanted to be there for every moment of his life, and I knew that meant forging a life for myself. By the time I was 17, I knew I had to re-enter the world.
Now, this is the part that she skips out, which is funny because, first of all, it says, people always thought he was older because he was so mature. We used to have incredible conversations. He's 3.5.
He's 3.5. What?
Yeah.
Shut up.
Retarded. Some people thought that he was stuck up. Jimmy knew that he didn't have to submit to being touched by anyone just because they thought he was cute. I've always found it odd that total strangers walk up to children who don't know them and start touching them. I agree with her in this case. I mean, like,
I do too.
You shouldn't be, it's one thing to wave at a kid and go, hi, and all the baby talk and stuff, but touching, fuck off.
Mm-hmm.
Keep your hands to yourself. For them, they didn't, he was oblivious to the ribbing. No, sorry. Jimmy would pull away if he didn't want to be touched. He was oblivious to the ribbing some other kids tried to heap on him. For him, they didn't even exist. So it's almost like I'm going to create another little Robin.
Exactly. And it's almost like she gets and this is me probably totally projecting, but I don't care. How she puts in here, some people thought he was stuck up. Like there's almost a pride in that. The stuck-upness is a good thing because that means you're elevated and like whatever.
Yes.
But he's 3.5. I don't know that anyone thinks a 3.5-year-old is stuck up.
Exactly. And I mean, you might call it, it might be a situation where, there's it's one thing to create confidence in a kid, and a kid knows that they're loved and that they can go to their parents and it's wonderful to see a kid reacting with their parents. There's nothing I like more than, especially when I see it, little kids with their grandparents holding them like hand in hand and walking around and being very, 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 I was going to say mindful, but like that TikToker, but treating the grandparents like their parents. And being respectful, not acting up, and understanding that they're older. They can't roughhouse with you. You can't just treat them like a climbing gym. And I love it. I love seeing it. I have a hard time seeing Robin being maternal. I have a hard time seeing her be like loving and all this bullshit. I hate to use that word, but it sounds to me like if they could be like her, that was ideal. But if they can't, she wouldn't have been able to deal with it.
Right, because even in this, she made it all about her. So just like with the little sister, as we've said, she went because she wanted to feel some kind of way. She wanted to feel like, look what I did. I changed this poor little girl's life. Me, I did it.
That's right. Robin was the alchemist.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Just saving these poor little children.
Exactly.
Right. And so I do not believe it was a genuine connection because you don't talk about people in this way. If it is a genuine connection, this just feels like her nonsense. Like she was an observer to the whole thing. And she was just trying to create the image that she changed this little boy's life or whatever.
Yes.
Like she made him confident and loved and all this stuff.
Robin was the reason. Robin was transformative. Her touch was healing.
Exactly.
Fucking hell. Okay, let me just check about this next clip.
I got accepted into a pre-nursing program at Maryland General Hospital. It was for girls in high school who were thinking about becoming nurses after they graduated. When I finished the course, I was one of the 4 students from the class to be offered a job by the hospital. I worked 1 day a week on the weekends my entire senior year. I loved having a marketable skill. I loved the responsibility and the acknowledgement of people whose opinions I respected. It made the prospect of leaving the safety of public school that much easier. I graduated with honors and was accepted at the University of Maryland.
Okay, so that boring segment is all you're going to get from in terms of audio, guys. We're going to go right into one sec. I'm going to make sure I got it right. We're going to go into the thing you've really been craving for, Jackie's Jackie's reading of Robin's book from the 2 Jameses. So let's see if I got it.
Jackie, read from your book?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
In fact, each day a different guy will read from the book his
Their
favorite part.
passage?
Right.
Today it's Jackie's reading.
Well, Jackie started reading to me in the car yesterday on the way over to that movie, and
Very good.
You thought you were going to split your sides.
that was good. It was it wasn't so much splitting your side. It was an interpretive reading of his favorite portion of the book.
You almost split your sides.
All right. Jackie, do you
Well,
need...
I fully expect Jackie to choke here.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I told Howard I know
Jackie
Charlie
already- yeah.
Brown and Lucy. I'm going to absolutely be hung out to dry. But you know
Jackie
what?
already said to me, I know you guys aren't going to laugh. I go, you know what? It doesn't matter if
It
we laugh.
doesn't matter because I am so totally entertained by this.
All right, Jackie, which selection will you be doing?
I'll be reading a selection, Howard, from chapter 6, titled The 2 Jameses.
All right.
And this is about Robin, who says that she almost never had a date, but then explains the date that she did happen to take.
Okay, let's hear it. See, Robin's already laughing.
Getting good.
I love Fred's queuing in the royalty music.
I know.
Although it's at odds with the other music, but it still works.
Oh, I can't believe
I'm
you chose
actually
this part.
enjoying this more than I did yesterday.
All right, go ahead.
I was in heaven yesterday.
Well, now you got a big audience.
In a totally uncharacteristic moment of weakness, during my last year of high school, I'd agreed to let my father fix me up with a date for the senior dance. He was some guy who worked with my father at the steel mill. I should have known better. But my objective was to go to the dance, not find true love.
Jackie's going to put this on dial and jump.
Yeah, I'm going to put it on 922.
Hey, Jackie, maybe I should have a recording session now.
A different chapter on every line.
Yeah.
Use your finger.
All right, go ahead. So Robin now.
Use your finger.
Robin wants a date,
Father.
and her father's going to say.
Oh, shut up, Jackie. Just read the
All right,
section
go ahead.
you're
All right,
working
go
on.
ahead. The father's going to set her up on a date.
Okay, now we lost it.
No.
I should have known better, but my objective was to go to the dance, not find true love. It's a good thing, too, because the boy turned out to be a complete cretin.
Now, what I love about this is she's laughing about it as if it is fiction. Like, and because she knows this is all horse shit. And like you know the type of laughing people can give when they're busted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, like you catch them on something and you're like guilty. Like, yes, you got me.
And they're not even trying to hide it.
No. And
They're
so
like, yeah.
don't you get that sense from her?
Yeah. Because she knows what's coming. Like it's like she's fine with it too, for whatever reason in this. Yeah, she's fine with it.
I think mostly because it's attention.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah.
I can honestly say that there wasn't one thing I liked about him. He was an ugly, semi-literate hulk, totally devoid of charm.
Are you adding words?
No. Robin's not sure she wrote this.
A friggin' syllable.
All right, wait. Start from the whole point again. That's a good one.
He was an ugly, semi-literate hulk, totally devoid of charm, grace, or tact. He arrived in his Sunday best, and it didn't do a thing for him.
So the guy.
You broke.
I'm sorry. I'm
sorry.
sorry.
Oh, he had a timing thing going.
Go ahead.
there.
Go ahead. Take the sentence
Take the
again.
sentence
I
again.
had
Sorry.
to give the queen her
right.
moment.
Sorry, Jackie.
Building. I will back up.
Yeah. He's doing good, so
I
I shouldn't have interrupted. Go ahead.
Poor Jack. He can't even keep it together.
No.
Can you give me one moment?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
He arrived in his Sunday best, and it didn't do a thing for him.
Look at Robin. She's like, oh, he's doing beautiful. I mean, she likes her words being read.
I, on the other hand, looked wonderful in a form-fitting black velvet number. Which was my first really sophisticated dress. The Cretan's eyes almost popped out when he saw me.
You can tell Jackie's reading it like he just can't believe what he's reading. He can't believe because it sounds so sensationalized and just complete horse shit. He knows it.
God, I know, it's so over the top. It's hilarious. I died when Robin goes, "Are you adding words?"
Yes.
Like, no, I'm reading it word for word.
Well, that's the thing. Like when the editors vet these things, I don't know how often it is where they add or they change prose based on what they think should go. But I bet you $10 there was a monumental rewrite job with this book in terms of just grammar, because she is an idiot. I have a feeling they gussied it up in some way to make it more flowery than it actually was. But I also believe that she wanted it that way.
Right. Like, I feel they probably had to tone it down, if anything.
Yes.
Like,
some of it
was, yeah, exactly. Like some of these parts, like you can just hear in what he just read, a tight fitting black velvet number. Like what is it? I don't know. It's so funny. It's like he's talking from the 1920s.
Yes.
Like
bodice rippers or some shit. You know, like some fucking, amazing.
The Cretan's eyes almost popped out of his head.
Popped out when he saw me. I gotta skip the next one here. One more?
What, you gonna do another reading? He has a great. No. That was great. Do you want to hear another reading?
Oh, absolutely.
All right.
I didn't know that was that funny.
This is you know what? He was reading it to me. I was like, wow, this is a funny book.
There's another hunk, but.
What do you think of that reading, Gary? You didn't hear it yesterday.
We loved it.
Yeah,
we loved it.
It's a great reading.
You want to talk to a black guy who's angry at Robin for?
Of course.
Well, why don't
you put him on and let him hear the next segment? Maybe
what he's mad about is he doesn't understand what Robin went through this abuse. Why does she have to make it public to make a buck off it?
Oh, that's what I'm doing. Sure.
He's a goofy guy though.
What's wrong with making it? It's her life. She might as well. You know what? Is he real? Does he speak real funny?
Moderately funny.
Okay. And then I'll put him on.
What is he up to that he doesn't want his children to disclose?
You're right.
Hey, it's her life. She might as well talk about it.
No, it's a shame what Robin is doing. There are many genuinely abused victims in this country.
Oh, I'm not genuinely abused. Is that what you're saying?
See how defensive she got right away?
Mm-hmm. Immediately.
Yeah. And one who was really abused would get angry, I think, and like not get incredulous, like, oh, you can't believe me? They would get furious. You know, there's no anger here. The only anger she's going to ever come out with here, if she can't control herself, will be, how dare you question me?
Right.
But it won't be like she'd go right back into it, or she'd cry, something like you don't go up to someone who's actually been abused and tell them you think it's bullshit. See what kind of fucking reaction you really get.
Yeah, it wouldn't be that, I don't think.
No.
Let the man make a point.
You're lying. You're lying.
Do you think her father didn't do that to her?
I don't believe so.
Did you read the book?
Yes, I did. You're lying. I don't believe you.
Why would I lie?
Well, let's hear how he knows
I
that
just
you're
want to
lying.
know.
Wait, you're getting defensive for a second.
No. I had a very valid question.
Wait a second.
There have been people who have written and said the abuse that Robin suffered wasn't all that great in terms of, the kinds of abuse stories people have told in the past.
Sounded pretty bad to me.
Robin,
so why wouldn't I just say that a lot of other things had happened if I was lying?
Because they didn't really happen, and you didn't want it to be as bad as those other people, but you had to have some kind of angle to sell, and that's always been our contention.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I agree.
Don't believe that.
All right, now tell me why.
Because I've sat here many times. I've listened to the show for years.
Go ahead.
And I've heard you spoke about abuse victims before. Robin have joined you. She have never shown any sign of emotion, being anger, being depressed. She's lying.
This is a comedy show, sir.
He's totally on point here, this guy calling.
That's actually a really good point. That, she's never shown any kind of care about it one way or the other in the past. And I think if you are sensitive to certain, I don't know, I'm trying to think of something in my own life, but there are certain hot topics that I have that I'll immediately start getting feisty on. And one of them I'll say is about religion. And I get real feisty when I don't want to put anyone off or anything, but we were talking about prayer in schools and making people read the Bible in school. I immediately am but that's because of my stuff.
Your experience.
With religion. Yes, exactly. And so I think there is some of that, especially in an abuse situation. If you hear something similar or other children getting abused or something, it might poke you in a way about it when it comes up.
It should set you off it should provoke some type of visceral reaction. But with her, the caller's right. They've made fun of abuse victims. They've mocked, when Fran Drescher came in, we're going to cover that one day. When Fran Drescher did an interview, I don't know, it was the release of her book or the paperback version of her book. I can't remember, but either way, she was in promoting it. And he talked about her rape like you'd talk about someone going to the grocery store to get a bottle of milk. It was so blasé. And were they black guys? And did you get excited and all this bullshit? Really, I can't remember exactly, but it was really trivializing an actual rape.
But
and
it's
all bad. It's all bad. There's no question. They're degrees, and that's what this guy's trying to say. The way you included it in your book was almost like a throwaway.
That's the point. To me, it doesn't matter if you were technically textbook raped or not. If your father does that to you, that ain't good,
fucked up,
right? You
it's
can
completely
still
fucked up.
You're fucking traumatized if that really happened. You're traumatized.
Yeah.
And right, to the point of the caller, she has never shown she hasn't given two shits one way or the other during any of this stuff. Yes, I get you're on the Howard Stern show. I get it is a comedy. I get he's a dick to Fran Drescher when she came on, but there would still be a part of you somewhere that would get uncomfortable or would try and take up for the guest that was there in some kind of way to show some compassion.
Well, this is the thing. I guess what I'm really wanting to put out there, and we've discussed it a little bit. She has to come out on top of any situation. So in this situation, she bit her father on the shoulder, and all of a sudden, okay, I'm the victor. I'm Muhammad Ali. But in Fran Drescher's book, she explains, I was a victim. Robin only chooses when she's a victim, but it's not going to be about some sexual assault. It's going to be something trivial to most people. My parents got the best of me. They beat me and da da da. But then I left and I became super successful and I ran the house and all this bullshit. But a real victim, of it, will tell their story as if in the context of I couldn't control. I was a victim. I couldn't do anything about it. The narrative that Robin wants to put forward, it's not. It just seemed contrived. I guess that's the best way I can put it.
It did. And again, we've said if it really did happen, then, she did herself a real disservice because of the way that she presented it.
Yes.
I don't think it did either. I think the way that she talks, she's the one that had the crush, which we've established on her dad. That's the weird part about it. Getting mad at Shirley. That's my daddy. I get it. You get jealous, but I don't know. And then there's a theme within the book that just like you said, she has to be this odd victor in everything she does. It is this Tina Turner moment at the end of every single story that she tells. And that's where you're like, okay, lady, this is just your gimmick. This is just your shtick for this powerful lady book or whatever.
Well, I guess so. Like when you see this play out in different scenarios, in different circumstances, you get wise real quick, and you suddenly go, you smell a rat. You go, okay, I'm detecting a pattern here, and that's not the way life goes. I mean, you have failures and you have successes. She can't have a failure unless it's attached to a success.
Exactly. She cannot have a failure, period. She can't be wrong. Period. Nope. We just read it. She can't admit to beating the shit out of these little kids without ending it on a note of, well, there was a diaper there, so it didn't really hurt him. What, lady? What?
I think I'd make a good parent.
God, are you insane?
I mean, would you ever try, like, imagine, like, the big sister thing, which happens later on, like knowing what you know about Robin, would you trust her with anybody? To keep them safe. I wouldn't
trust her with my cats. I wouldn't trust her with anything.
Right.
Anything. Poor Jim Florentine. I was thinking about him. Like, what did that man have to, go through with this woman? Endure. That's the word. Yeah.
Well, I think Jim probably only dealt with her like on the odd weekend or whatever, like once a month, or because he was constantly on the road and stuff. But I don't think he had to, put up with a whole lot before he realized.
No, I'm kidding, but like, she's
fucking nuts. I mean,
he's probably like, this bitch is crazy.
Right. Well, by the time, and someone just messaged me on Twitter talking about a Netflix show. Hold on, let me see if I got it right. Let me get the name of the show. I don't know why I'm plugging it, but otherwise, because there's some type of correlation she figures between. It was Carol Gillette Cheney. She messaged me if I'd seen something called Apple Cider Vinegar. It's a documentary on Netflix. It's about the con artist Belle Gibson. She said the people in the story follow to the letter the same vacation/healing destination journey Robin took through the years. Robin had cancer all along. I would bet my money on it. She said my jaw was on the floor the entire time, and I was like, I've heard of that place and the protocol. Robin did it, and so Robin. Like with the 15 Foundation, with everything else, it's got to be, I'm triumphant with the cancer thing, the way the narrative, like it follows her entire life, that she's got to come out on top. And sometimes in life you don't, and that's a life lesson. You get the shit beat out of you. You don't get revenge on that person. You may use it as some kind of stepping stone to better yourself somehow. With her, it can't go very long before that comeuppance happens, and it has to happen
every time, every single time. And it's funny because I mean, I'll say I'm pretty open, but not with boundaries, right? So I'm in therapy, and one of the topics recently was I did all the quote right things, and I still didn't win. Let's say. I did all the right things. I did everything you're supposed to do. And I was so upset. And she was like, well, that's just how life is. You don't always, I mean, these weren't the exact words, but basically telling me, you just don't always win. You don't always get what you want. You don't always come out on top, regardless if you're doing the right things or not. Right. That's the part of acceptance that's shitty.
But it's missing from Robin's book.
Right. And if you parallel just Fran Drescher's book, I bet you anything, and I haven't read it, so I can't speak to it, but I bet you anything, she didn't go through every single thing that she talked about having to win on the other side of it. And I imagine the moral to her, the story of her being, attacked in that way was that she just kind of had to, she had to get through it and keep on living. Like that was the That's it's not a fight motif, it's a survival motif. Right.
And any cancer survivor, and that's written a book. My wife's reading one now. I can't remember the name of it, but something related. Her name's Shirley. I can't remember the name of the book. But anyway, she keeps telling me to read it. But again, because of what she went through, I find it hard to read about someone else's cancer struggle because it just brings up bad memories. And it's tough going. So I just don't like. I'm sure it's fantastic. I'm sure I trust her judgment when it comes to reading and books that are well put together and stuff. But I just don't want to go through it. And at any rate, it's about getting through. And with Robin, it's not enough to get through. You have to be successful.
Exactly.
And like I didn't, when she gets into therapy later on and goes like, I've decided I don't need therapy anymore. Well, your therapist is usually the one that tells you, they'll be the first to tell you this is now superfluous. Like if you find some comfort in this, that's one thing. But I'm telling you, I've seen the change. I noticed the change. A good psychiatrist will say you don't need this anymore. When that moment comes. I mean, Howard's obviously, he's like, I don't give a fuck. He's fucked up. He's not changing. And if I don't do it, somebody else will take his money. So I may as well be me.
Right. Yeah, that's a whole other story over there. But yeah, exactly. She probably says she won therapy. Like she triumphed.
I won the therapy cup.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And incidentally, guys, when I say this is something Benjamin has said in the past, when I say about her ordeal versus Fran Drescher's, the whole point is like the people that have released books about abuse were really, they were through the ringer. Like what Robin went through was bad if true, but it doesn't come close to the other stories. And I'm saying it doesn't seem like enough to wrap a book around is my whole point. And because Robin didn't follow up and become an advocate for, survivors of sexual assault. She did not, like volunteer at a women's shelter or things like that where women have been. She didn't propel this into something of that related to that. She had to make this story about her life. And that it almost gets like, once we get that out of the way, now we can talk about my fucking triumphs.
Right. And so another reason it doesn't come off sounding true is because this is the hook of the book. This is the hook, the big story that every one of these empowerment books have to have. They have to have the Tina Turner moment where the person goes through something and then they triumph over it in this great grand way. But there was nothing else there with it. Everything feels so empty in this book. It feels like just a bunch of floaty, haughty words on a page with no feeling, no emotion, no connection to what's actually being written here. Like you can exactly when you read a story of somebody's life, especially if it's true, if it's real, you're going to feel something.
But we don't feel for her.
Read it. No.
And isn't that like a major flaw in the narrative? If you can't relate to not if you can't relate to the person, but if you can't connect on any level to some abuse that they claim to have suffered.
Right. Now there might be a sentence or two in here where I'm like, ooh, that sucked. Like, because you can feel that it had a different kind of tone to it. It kind of felt a little bit, all right, maybe that was real. But for the most of it, the whole book is just completely void of any realness, truth, connection, human. There's no human in this book.
No, you're right.
It's all fluff.
You're right. There's that, and there's also like when there comes a moment where you go, okay, I'm about to feel like some sympathy here. It gets counteracted by some really awkward sentence or exchange that makes you like hate that person again, or like makes you think this person's a dickhead. Not that they deserve to get abused or punched or whatever like that, but you're like, well, I'm not surprised people hate your fucking guts. If this is the way you wrote the book, no one wants to root for you, and that's the end of a book. If you can't root for the protagonist, unless you're reading it like American Psycho or something like that, and the protagonist is like a fucking serial killer.
Well, even in that, there's a connection to it.
Yes.
Even in that, you feel something for the character. Like, I don't know if people have read the Chuck Palahniuk books, but he's got several outside of Fight Club. They're horrible. but they're good. I mean, he takes the most gross, awful topics and stories and themes or whatever, but he's got a way. He's got a way to even the most horrible, main character of the book, even if they're awful, you still kind of might have a moment where you're feeling for them.
Well, that's it. If you're fascinated, it's for the right reason.
Yes.
It's something. Maybe it's been. First of all, it's been written much better. Second of all, there's some elements that draw you in. With Robin, you're always jarred by some awful exchange or some poorly written passage that goes, "Oh, you just shook you. Oh, yeah, I remember. Oh, this person's an asshole." Okay.
Right.
All of a sudden, you're shaken from your reverie, and it's like, but it doesn't take that long in Robin's book before you start hating her again.
It doesn't. It's offensive.
Yeah.
And we want to compare the Matthew Perry book, which I've started, but I haven't finished it.
Mm-hmm.
It's god awful. It's terrible, but it still feels different to me. Like I can be like, oh, this guy's a motherfucker. Like the whole way through, I don't know. I even can connect with it on a different way than whatever this is.
But he from start to finish. What the problem with the Matthew Perry book? It's also cyclical and repetitive the way Robin's book is. But she's talking about different encounters. He's talking about slightly different encounters with much the same endings all the time. And what you're left with is this person hates themselves, but loves themselves as well. Otherwise, they wouldn't do this to themselves. But at the same time, they do not learn any life lessons. And Robin is much similar, but his is a more just given more actual detail of the degradation he went through.
Yes, it feels more real in that. And that's different to me. Like and that's kind of the point too that we're trying to make here is that you read his book, you realize he's a fucking asshole, like narcissist in a different way.
Yes.
But you still believe the things that he's saying in here. He's just an asshole.
Right. I mean, not some of the hyperbole, like how she changed language forever.
Of course.
He's the funniest guy in any room ever.
It's very self-indulgent, and you get all that. And that's not even a good example of a book. That's just taking another very bad book, but comparing it to this. This reads like fiction.
Right. But the thing is, whereas Robin probably held back some real things, I don't think he held back in the stuff that he's talking about that is real.
Right. And she does the opposite. I think she was so guarded in this.
Yes.
She was so purposeful in the stories that she told, in the way that she told them to keep a certain image going.
Yes.
Very calculated. Whether that's conscious or not, as she was doing it, it still was very calculated. And you can feel it. You can read it. You can tell this is just surface level bullshit.
I think so. Yeah. And I think that people in their core, when they read it, they'll be in dispute. They'll say it's science fiction, as we have as well. It just doesn't read right, and that's like your antenna goes up. And when you're reading something, you go, something goes like, oh, this is not right. Your gut usually is correct.
Exactly. Yes.
Especially when you get to a certain age. So we'll read a little bit more about this. Then we'll kind of fast forward to the end where Gary talks about her behavior and how, they talk about she's not cured and this is how she was, because I think it's important as well.
All for the sake of money, she's trying to get attention.
I see.
It's a shame what you're doing, and stop it.
Robin, can you stop it already? Could you stop lying about the abuse? The guy.
Who is this guy? He's some guy putting on an accent.
It's Billy from his house.
This might be that cretin.
Did you date Robin?
No, I bought this book and I tore it up and burned it up yesterday.
You burned it.
Just as long as you're paid.
So where are you from? That accent is very unusual.
I'm from the Caribbean.
Oh, you are from the Caribbean.
Yeah, I listen to the show every day. I mean, it's a shame what she does to black people on the show anyway. But I can't believe that she would go out and lie about being abused just to get attention.
Well, it's a hard thing to prove, but you know what? I'm going to tell you something about Robin. Not only did her father admit to it, but
he hasn't said the book is a lie.
He hasn't said the book is a lie. He's got dementia, you fucking idiot. And he hasn't admitted to it. He's admitted to it. He hasn't denied it. Not denying something is not the same as admitting it.
No, and she said he hasn't said the book is a lie.
Right.
She wasn't specific. He didn't say he didn't do this. I don't know. Again, it just feels very careful, whether conscious or not, how she says things.
Yep.
He probably just does it just to save her, just to save him.
You think he's getting a cut of the book?
I think so.
I see. This guy's like, he should be on the OJ jury.
I tell you, boy, you got some defense going.
Back to the book. And Jackie's interpretive reading. Quivers, a life. Jackie Martling,
The point of the two Jameses is the second James is she leaves the Cretan.
Right.
Continues to chase her, but I'm going to skip over that.
Okay.
Because he just can't get enough of her, and she rejects him. But
right.
This is her meeting James.
Uh-oh.
All right.
Almost claims her as a prize, but
this is where Robin
to find out if he does or doesn't.
This is where Robin meets the second James.
Yeah.
No, the
first James was not a romantic interest.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you, Jackie. And now Jackie as Robin reading from her book.
What I didn't know was that I'd find my Prince Charming as close to home as my friend Marlene's kitchen. Marlene was one of my last classmates who didn't have a guy. We became partners on the prowl.
Isn't it interesting to see what Jackie's favorite part would be?
Really?
Yeah, go ahead.
On our first outing, we met at her house. I was early, so she was still dressing.
He had to look at all the eyes in the book and go like, this is too funny. This is a comedy film. It's just no one's read. So his idea of reading it was brilliant. Even if his on the fly jokes might have been hokey and schlocky and stuff, sometimes this was a fucking stroke of genius.
Yeah, it was. He even does facial.
Yeah.
His facial expressions are hilarious.
They are.
You're not that funny. Go ahead.
Shut up.
Okay.
Hi.
When you don't laugh at yourself, you're funnier. Go ahead.
I'm laughing.
Go.
Don't you laugh.
All right. Don't break yourself up. You do interpretive reading.
I had on my man. This is in quotes.
Right.
I had on my man trapping outfit. We're talking a lime green tennis skirt and a navy blue shell.
What is
the
that?
Colors of the day.
Fucking atrocious colors, even in the
What
60s.
are those colors?
Lime green and navy blue.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And all you could see were legs for days. I forgot all about fashion, though, when I walked into Marlene's kitchen and saw him.
Ooh.
And I don't know.
Beautiful read. Come on. Give the guy some credit.
I don't know what the other guys will choose, but I'm hoping that no one will choose the passage that I will be doing if I get another opportunity.
Do you have another passage selected?
Favorite passages.
Oh, he's full
Well,
of
I
them.
don't want to overdo it here.
I'll do one more.
You do one more. I love it.
See, but
You got to admit he's good at it.
each part, though, you really need the build of.
What's going on? All right, so save it.
In?
Maybe this doesn't need,
Huh. Is it a paragraph? Here's Jackie again. He obviously wants to read more.
This.
I mean, this is not a bitch. I mean, this is.
He read to me.
God.
He's saying you pick a page and read it, and you're going to be all right. Now, it's not completely true, but because we have to skip through some of the book ourselves. But he's right. When you get into the meat of the anecdote that's being, or the science fiction that's being portrayed, that's being written, then it's a self-contained unit. Like, it's a self-contained joke when you read it, especially the way he's doing it. I love it.
For about 15 minutes in the car, and he had me going.
Maybe let me
It's
go.
different.
I'll go a little
I
faster.
should have let Jackie do my audio.
Yeah, I know. You don't tell me you did it.
Yes.
No, Jackie do
I'll
it.
go a little faster so it's not so drawn out.
No. You read. I don't want to
You
ruin your
read the
impression.
way you think I wrote it.
Very regal.
Don't shortchange it.
It was probably that kind of peer pressure that convinced me that now was the time to shed my virginity. It never occurred to me that I could be a lesbian, and I figured that if I wasn't a virgin anymore, it would end the speculation of others.
Why would you have sex to end the speculation of others that you're a lesbian or not? And where's the speculation coming from?
Why do you lead in it? All right. I think it's time to lose my virginity because it's never occurred to me that I was a lesbian.
Right.
What? What does that have to do with anything?
That makes no sense whatsoever.
So I think she did wonder if she was a lesbian because it's like telling on herself.
Well, that's my question to you, I guess. Like, do you think she is? Do you think the whole Mr. X thing was like bullshit and she was, or do you think she's like Howard bisexual, perhaps? Because a lot of people have postulated that because she's just been without guys. Oprah, the people have been saying about Oprah for a long time. It's another thing they have in common. But the difference being that, well, no one cares if Robin is or not. And with Oprah, I don't think people really give a fuck anymore either. But they did for a long time because she was always with Gail, and Stedman was just this, clearly beards exist in the entertainment industry. It's not a new thing. But with Robin, there's been always speculation that she, if she wasn't dating, she wasn't taken, why not? And if she was, they always used to say, well, if she'd be a lesbian, she'd be out. Well, she lies about everything. Why wouldn't she lie about her sexuality as well?
Right. And I also feel like it really was a different time then. So if you grow up, having it, ingrained in you that that's wrong and bad, like you might have a real hard time allowing yourself to even admit it or I'm sure you go through the back and forth with it and wondering, but, I could see that she was with Mr. X just like a normal relationship because if you are pushing that down, then this is just what you do because you don't think you have another option. And that's just, that's just what you do. I don't know if she is or not, but I never really considered it, that much one way or the other, but this makes me consider it because it was so misplaced and out of. Now, had she led before talking about, I hadn't dated much, I hadn't been with I hadn't had any boyfriends, I had these girlfriends, because now you go back and you think about how Kim walks into the room and Kim had a vibe about her. Like, who says that? Why is that your thought?
Why are you talking about her not wanting to cover her private parts and her breasts and stuff like that?
Exactly.
But, it's a little too descriptive in a way. You're right. And you don't get these about boys. Like, she's not talking about boys you would, like, in your teen years, how you might discuss your first love or your first crush or whatever. Like, why didn't she talk about some teen idol that they all loved at the time? Or, you know what I mean? Like, something like, rather than talk about your hero, Muhammad Ali, what he would talk about, the latest pop star, Elvis or something like that, whoever you were hot for. I don't know.
Right. And it doesn't even really come off like this James guy she's like all hot for. It's almost like a decision. All right, I'm in my hot outfit and there's this dude, so it's time to lose my virginity because I'm not a lesbian. What?
Right. Like, slide over. Let's get this started. Well, the other thing, I personally think she is straight. I never really bought the whole lesbian thing because I just think she's so unbearable as a human being. No one wants to stay with her, and that's it. Now, the Simona Dinnerstein thing had people going so much, except that I believe Simona Dinnerstein is married, but I'm not 100% on that. So you guys can speculate all you like. I think she's just so up her own ass that people can't put up with it, and that's why she's gonna pass away alone. But that she wouldn't be the only person like that in life to go through that way. But it's the world of Robin. We're just visiting, guys.
With James out of the picture, I was free to find out the lucky man turned out to be a friend of my roommate's ex-con boyfriend. His name was Billy. He was like all the boys back in my old neighborhood. A decent sort.
How dare you read my words?
But not much ambition. He'd finished high school and had gotten himself a job. The next thing on the agenda was to find himself a woman. He flipped for me the night we met, so I thought, why not?
Oh my Lord. When you like that's, but you know what? He's reading it the way it should be read. Like this
I know.
haughty bullshit. This like having high tea with the queen.
And that music is perfect. Perfect for this. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to leave a little bit there. Let me just hold on. Let's see. Hold on.
I don't think either of us knew what we were doing. Oh, for all I know, Billy might have been a virgin too. The big event took place in his mother's converted basement, which served as his Washington, D.C. bachelor pad. I had no idea what I was in for. The pain was excruciating. I would have preferred to have been stabbed repeatedly, but here I was instead with my head repeatedly banging into the headboard of his bed. But I was determined to rid myself of this dreaded virginity.
He's getting rid of it.
So I gritted my teeth and stuck it out. Just as the pain was beginning to subside, he stopped thrusting, shuddered, and collapsed on me like a dead man. My first thought was that what all the fuss was about? But my second was that I was now a proud member in good standing of the Sisterhood of the Sexually Active.
Beautiful. Who the fuck writes that shit? Fucking hell.
Oh my God. So
I can't even, guys. So what we're gonna fast forward a little bit to this segment where Gary talks about the unease, like the difficulty of dealing with Robin.
Well, actually, Robin is not completely cured, even though she thinks she is.
Oh boy! Look who's diagnosing me.
I'm not saying I'm well. I'm just telling you I'm not cured. So anyway,
I know you're not cured.
The Robin is cured. Who wants to go first?
I do.
Okay.
Well, I didn't know what was going on with Robin, but I thought that maybe at one point Robin actually had me convinced that there might be something wrong with me. and there's a story in the book where Robin talks about how she yelled at me having to do with the birthday show when she spoke to you. And I remember when you walked me out of the building, and I was really, really flustered. And you said to me, Gary, don't worry, Robin, she goes a little off. She's a little out there. She's a little nutty and everything. And I remember thinking,
that stuff
of course, you're insane.
And I remember thinking,
I knew it wasn't his fault.
And I remember thinking to myself, Howard probably went home and called Robin and said, don't worry about Gary. He's a little nutty.
That's
he's a little
exactly
crazy.
what I did.
Yeah, it's exactly,
I just told both of you but no, actually, I told Gary that you were insane.
But I didn't believe Howard.
I mean, I smoothed it out. Once I said that, he was like, I said, you gotta understand, she's insane.
But Howard mentioned to me that you had sort of in the past had some episodes, and I just didn't believe him.
What episodes are you talking about?
No, where you go off and you go whacked out.
Right.
Whacked out. Like that's not. It's not descriptive enough. Like I wish they would just get it over and say exactly what she would do.
I know, but he just told Gary she's insane.
Yes.
She, when you go off and get whacked out. So is she? She has to be screaming and yelling like.
Yes, a banshee.
Yes, like over the top, getting crazy, and everybody's confused as to why.
Histrionics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like a kid. Like when the kid wants the toy and you pull them, drag them out of the toy department into the car, and they're screaming.
Yeah.
We've all, I'm sure every parent has been there, and. Like you're, what's that line in the Clint Eastwood Heartbreak Ridge? He goes, "It's my will against yours, and you will lose." You've got to do that with your kid, but now imagine doing that with a fucking grown adult in the workforce.
And I could just see like somebody like Gary, especially, you're just blindsided by this person getting like you're just, going through the thing like what, 1, 2, 3. And then she's over there going crazy and getting mad and out of control, but you don't know why really.
Yeah. You're asking yourself, what the fuck did I do?
Right? Like what just happened
to deserve
here?
this? Yeah, like do I deserve this? You're asking, like when it happens. I've only seen a couple blow-ups like that type in the workforce, and one of them, the guy I found out after the fact, the guy was having enormous financial stress, so that didn't help. But then he blew up at some of the higher ups when he shouldn't have, and but the other thing that was at play was he had just won, like, I don't know, professor of the year, like whatever, some award, like that he thought was basically I'm untouchable. So he also thought I could get away with yelling like this. Didn't understand that, dude, no one gets away with that. No one, unless they're the boss.
Right. And even then, these days, you're not. But yeah, back then you could.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. I wonder what
you
did.
told Gary this.
Of course.
When did you do this?
Every day.
Now I'm getting upset.
The morning after that fight, after you and I made up, I walked Howard down to the car. And I said, man, that was pretty wild.
Gary was really shook up.
This was in the other
and the fight made no sense.
Yeah.
So I said, "It's Robin. She doesn't make sense."
So there you go. See, like it was uncontrolled rage at something completely trivial. They couldn't figure it out. Gary certainly couldn't figure it out. And I know the exchange in the book and the way she explained, Gary, you're going to have to go away. Otherwise, I will not be responsible for what happens next.
Jesus. God. And for Howard to say Gary was shaken up.
Yeah.
And, I forget what he just said, and I just heard it. Made no sense. That's what he said. It made no sense. That's exactly what we were just saying. Like, it comes out of nowhere, and you're like, what the fuck is going on right now? What?
Right. And I had one kind of girlfriend that we weren't very serious, but she acted like that, and it was not the time of the month. I'm telling you, it was not predicated by anything that had happened that day. She went off one time and not drunk, wasn't substance related, and that was it for me. I said, this person's a wackadoodle. There's just something wrong with them. And I found out years later, they had it was an abuse situation, same as Robin quotes. She claims she did, but I found out of it afterwards. And when she got medicated later on, a friend of mine said she was really more sedate than a normal person would be, of course. But he said, but at least that never happened again with her.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awful.
Yeah. I mean, it's good that she did eventually get help.
Yeah.
I'd be damned if I was going to ever put up with that shit.
No, God, no.
Life's too short. Fuck it.
On the air, she may say.
And Fred as well used to try to convince me, hey, don't worry, it's not you. But I thought there was something wrong with me.
Freddie, too, was talking behind my back?
Oh, everyone was. They'd all come to me, and I had to smooth everything out.
I was new. I had no idea what was going on.
Jackie actually was good because he just didn't even pay attention to it.
I was still trying to get you guys out.
So that's what was going on. Now I'm finding out things.
Yeah, Fred, is that pretty accurate?
I'd say you're absolutely right. And also, as a postscript, she's better, but she still has to be watched.
Right.
Thank you, Fred, Mr. Mania.
In other words, there's a second book in her.
I think there's a second book, if not in her, in us, as an addendum to this book that just came out.
Yes, and I will go on the record as saying...
I used to like Fred.
I sort of was the glue that held everything together for Robin. You don't know. I should write a book on how many meetings I had to take behind the scenes to hold Robin's job together. People were like, I don't understand her. How could she work here? I said, she's talented. Who cares how kooky she is off the air? I don't have any problem with it.
Robin,
I don't have any problem with it because he doesn't have to fucking deal with it.
Right. But what he just said, how many meetings he had to have about her job.
It might have been, knowing Howard, it was one meeting or two meetings, but it's going to make it sound like it was 20. But if you my whole point, though, is if you have one meeting, it's one meeting too many, if you're like that.
Yeah, if it's about that. Now, look, we all snap. I did it yesterday, to be honest, at work.
Really?
I snapped a little bit. I did. I had just had enough of this shit. Okay. And, I'm pretty easygoing. So if I'm getting snippy, then look, there's
probably a damn good reason.
Yeah, and I don't normally do that, but yesterday it just hit me in the right way. And I literally was like, can somebody just do it? Somebody just take care of it. Yeah. I don't do that. Like, I really don't. And I actually apologized this morning because I felt so bad. I didn't have to, but I just felt bad on that little tiny snap, like it wasn't some over the top thing. So if you're having a meeting about your attitude and your craziness, that's
behind
not
your
a
back.
good sign. Yeah.
Yes.
Not a good sign.
Well, I mean, the fact is he was and I believe him. I do believe him, the fact that he had to be consulted about this, because clearly it was a problem to multiple people around the station. And they're saying I imagine it would be something along the lines of, we don't feel safe around her. This isn't a question of someone having a temper tantrum. She's insane. Like, there's something distinctly wrong with her, and you have to get rid of her, because what's the next thing? Flying coffee mugs going at our faces. You never know.
You're right, because I say these people because I worked with one not too long ago.
Okay.
And I knew the minute I got there. I'm pretty intuitive about people right away, usually. And this one was easy to spot. And I was like, oh shit, she's going to be a problem. I just knew.
Okay.
Sure enough, slow build, to the point I was like, I don't think I can work here anymore. And I had said that. Well, one day, the final straw for me, we were on a Teams call, and her dog came into her office, because we work from home, and jumped up on her desk. She picked up that dog and threw it. And I was like, okay, we're done.
Christ. We
are done. This lady's a fucking nut.
Yes.
I immediately went to HR after that, and I was like, I need to be placed on another team, because if you guys aren't going to get rid of her, I can't work with her. I'm just not going to do it. Now, they did let her go like 6 months later. It wasn't just because of me. Like, I didn't cause it, but I know that me speaking up about her they couldn't ignore it, because there was so many people.
So it was one in a long line of whatever people's complaints.
Yes.
Yeah. And repeated behavior.
Yep.
Throwing a dog, for fuck's sake.
Through it. Now, not like across the room, not like, I don't want it to be over the top, but she picked it up and threw it to the ground.
Jesus Christ. That's an insane person.
That is an insane person. Yes.
Holy fuck.
Yeah.
So did you, as a follow-up, did you ever find out what happened to her?
Yeah, she's got some job somewhere. I don't know. I mean, somebody hired her, because they don't know.
Somebody else is picking the staples out of their back.
Right. Like, that's their problem. I don't know. Yeah. I just know I don't have to deal with it anymore.
Just nuts.
He actually said that to me many times. He said, listen, Robin's a little kooky. She goes wild off the air, but she's the best person I've ever worked with, and I don't care what she does in the rest of her life.
I don't care how miserable she makes you. Just sit there. I said to him, hey, stupid, just stand there and take it.
Now, that's Howard. I don't care what she does in her life, as long as she's good for the show. You attach that to Artie as well, same argument. He does not care, and did not care.
No, he doesn't. Nope. No, good stories to tell.
It was only when it affected him that it had to change, and he confronted her.
Yep. Exactly.
And it wouldn't have changed if he wasn't on top of the food chain. She was not going to change how she behaved towards him. And the fact that she changes like that she said, okay, she was threatened for her job from losing her job, means she can control it. She can control it with different people when she wants to. That's why this person's dangerous.
Exactly. Yes. Because it is conscious depending on who it is. So it makes you realize people that she views as more powerful than her.
Yep.
She'll have, quote, respect for. But anyone that she feels is beneath her, she will destroy, abuse, whatever.
Whether it's respect or fear, we don't know. But either way, it's something that will determine whether or not she can be like that with them. And so in a lot of ways, I think it's her testing other people as well, testing their boundaries. And with people like that, the minute you prove that you're not, all of a sudden the dynamic changes drastically. So she sussed that out. Well, she's lucky to be able to keep the job to suss it out further. But anyway, we'll play it out.
And don't let it mean anything. She'll forget it the next day. But you did.
This is horrible. I'm so sorry.
She's never written a book. I told you.
No, I didn't. I had no clue what
you were
people
whacked.
Perceived about my carrying on.
Yeah.
I mean, it really shocked me when I discovered Gary was so hurt.
I perceive how people perceived it. There's no two types of perception in this situation. You're either a fucking nut or you aren't.
Right. And it's almost like she's saying, I was not aware how people perceived my carrying on.
Right.
Like,
as if to say that, I didn't know that it could be construed as negative.
Right. Like she just thought that was normal.
Right.
Okay.
Ooh.
Really did.
Did it? Really?
I was devastated.
Oh, yeah.
I was devastated.
We were like, we used to huddle like under the desk with the interns and even the guy in promotions. We'd like, because you just never knew.
Yeah, Jackie's contract crap was a holiday compared to you. I mean, really. Once every 3 years, Jackie.
That was a party.
Yeah. Other than that, he's okay. But look, you've pulled through in Quivers of Life, and that's
now
the.
you're telling people I'm still should be what?
Well, I don't know.
I'm gonna cry.
Go celebrate with Robin.
There you go.
But actually, the book is a great read, and you'll enjoy it. And you should go. You should quickly run for it before they sell out.
It does make me sad to think that I did that to people.
Well, just say you were sick back then. Now you're healthy.
I was, but there's no excuse.
That's right. And if you want, buy the book and read it out loud.
Read it to your friends.
Now, who's going to do the next read? Is Fred going to go next?
I could go or Gary could go.
Yeah, all right. So next week we'll have more readings?
Okay.
Sure.
Gary, you going to do a reading?
Sure.
Okay, sure. All right,
Over the
good.
weekend, I'll find my 6 best selections.
All right, very good. Nice reading, Jackie.
It was beautiful.
Thank you very much.
Some of the best work he's ever done.
You know what? He finally found something he does good.
He does that well.
Yeah.
You know, it's been how many years?
Yeah.
My God, did I enjoy that.
I know.
It's so much better than your Michael Jackson.
How many years?
Because Jackie is mad about everything. My stand-up career, I should be more famous. I should. That he does. These people are calling. They can't get enough.
They can't.
If you did that on Star Search, you would have won.
Easy.
I hadn't written it.
Maybe
I know.
I'll Star Search with one of these.
I think we'll leave it there, guys. There's only a little bit more, and I don't think there's much more to it. But I want to thank you so much for helping me with this particular segment, and got to thank Jackie for doing this. I'm gonna drop him a line and let him know it's out there soon, because I know he enjoys being appreciated. Any shout outs and any you've got the floor for the dedication. If there's, I was thinking like ELO, Evil Woman, or, I don't know, whatever song you want is up to you.
You know, funny enough, I want to do something like a prom song from Robin's prom. Like, I want to do something fun. I don't know. I'm so sick of Robin. I want something fun. Like, didn't she go to the prom with the cretin? Isn't that what she was talking about?
I don't know if it was a prom or it was just an out and out date, you know. But were you thinking OMD if you leave?
Ooh, I love that song. That's a good
Me too.
one. Let's play that.
Okay, fair enough. OMD.
Let's
you
do
want
it.
the
It's fun. I love it.
7? You want the 7-inch or you want the single edit?
I want the single. I like it better, actually.
Oh, okay, perfect. Well, anyway, guys, thank you so much for listening. We hope you appreciate this. And any shout outs, by the way, before we wrap it up?
No, I can't think of anyone right now. Oh, yes, there is a shout out. Poor Jaden Wilson. Poor little Jaden. He wanted the group chat and now he can't get in it. So I don't know what's going on.
Is he is he part of the group? I don't know why he can't get on.
He is. He's in the group, but it won't let us invite him.
Well, maybe I don't know. It might be a setting he has, like not to be allowed. Like he might have inadvertently triggered something, like the setting, like do not allow myself to be entered into any group, because he could have been put into a bunch of groups in the past, you know, the way people do, and all of a sudden you got to opt out of it, and he got fed up with it and changed the settings. So if he looks through his settings, he'll be able to find a way.
All right, I'll tell him. I just felt so bad because it was his idea, and then he couldn't get into it.
Yeah. Well, we hope we figure that one out. Anyway, guys, take care, and we'll see you on the next one.
Bye.
Your name doesn't insult me.
Fuck Warp Speed. Fuck it. I ain't going to Warp Speed. Fuck Warp Speed. Fuck Zulu. Fuck that bitch. Hi, Spock.
Shut up. You about to blow.
Fuck the Enterprise. Fuck Vulcans. Fuck them.
Are you ready to
Hi, Zulu.
baby fat boy? Now shut up, you beach whale.
Fuck when Mo Man gone before. Fuck the final frontier. Fuck it. High bones.